Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to talk about what are custom renderers and how we can use them in our apps. So what is a custom renderer? Well, basically when we're creating, let's say I want to create a custom button that has, I don't know, rounded corners. I would basically create a widget in Xamarin.Forms, and then if I cannot accomplish what I want to accomplish with Xamarin.Forms, I would write a renderer for it. One renderer for iOS, one for Android, and one for Windows. It allows us to customize our widgets even more than we can with standard Xamarin.Forms. So let's see how we're going to do that. Let's create a blank Xamarin.Forms app. Let's call it custom renderers. Put this on the desktop. Okay. Okay, so we have our default Xamarin.Forms project, and first of all we're going to create a custom button. Now, why are we going to create a custom button? Because even though we're writing renderers, I may just write a renderer for the standard Xamarin.Forms button class, but you most likely want to avoid that. So you can decouple if you want to have like button with custom font and the standard button, not to have your normal button. All your normal buttons have a custom font or something. So let's create a new directory called custom controls, and there we'll create a new class which is going to be called custom button. And the only thing we're going to do here is basically inherit from the button class. Now we can use just the standard button and this would all work, but I explained just a couple of seconds ago why we're doing this. So now let's add this custom button to our main page. So first we need to add a namespace reference to our custom controls namespace. So let's call this controls. And since here I don't have autocomplete, I'm just going to copy this and say dot custom controls. Okay, now let's declare a custom button and set its text to be click me. And that's it for the Xamarin.Forms project. Let me actually set it to be in the center also. Okay, now let's write our custom renderers. So let's create a new directory in our Android project, which we're going to call renderers. So if we need a custom renderer just for Android, so we can customize some specific Android feature, we can have just one renderer. If we don't have in iOS and we have in Android, Xamarin will automatically recognize that and use the standard renderer. So let's create a new file, custom button renderer, and inherit it from a standard button renderer, and add this namespace. Now let's add a recommended constructor. And now how are we going to customize this? And now how are we going to customize this button? Mostly you're going to do that in onElementChanged method, but if you're using some kind of custom widgets that are outside of Xamarin, you may have to look into its documentation or maybe even its source code to understand how you're going to change it. But here we're going to change it in the onElementChanged. And now how are we going to access the native Android control? Well, we're just going to access the control property, and this is our native button control on Android. So here we can do basically everything we can do in native Android. So if you don't know how to do something like, I don't know, set the background color of a button, I think, or something, then you can look it up for Xamarin Android specifically, but if you don't find it, you can look up just in normal Android or iOS. In 90% cases it's going to be the same, if not, it's going to be fairly similar. So let's just set background color. Okay, and now it requires Android.graphics.color. Now you see I didn't use just color because we added the Xamarin.Forms namespace, which also has a color class, which would create ambiguity between those two. So we're going to write it like this. So let's set this to blue, and that's basically it. Now let's create the renderer on iOS. Add a directory, custom renderers. Oh, and one thing I forgot, so this renderer would be actually registered by Xamarin.Forms. We need to add the export renderer decorator, I think it is, assembly, export renderer, and now set type of custom button. This is the custom button that we created in our Xamarin.Forms project. Now add this namespace and also type of, type of our custom button renderer. Copy that and paste it over here. Now we have also to add this namespace too. And that's it. Now this renderer is going to be recognized by Xamarin.Forms when we run this on Android. So now let's create again our custom button renderer, and the process is fairly similar, so let's just inherit from button renderer, but this is going to be a different class. It's going to be in Xamarin.Forms.platform.iOS and not in the Xamarin.Forms platform Android namespace. And now let's just override on element changed. Now setting the background color on iOS is going to be a little bit different because this is native code. So let's go to control dot, I think it's background color, yes it is equal to, now here we're going to write UI color and import this namespace dot, let's say, I don't know, green. And that's it. Now we also need to register this namespace. Let me just copy this whole line because it's basically the same. Now we need to add this and add this. Okay. Now let's just save this. And I think that's it. Let's try and running this on Android. Okay, so our app is up and running, and as you can see we have our button which says click me, just like here, and its background color is set to blue, just like here. Now let's try running this on iOS and see if we get the same result. Okay, so as you can see our app is running on iOS, and here we have our button, but the only difference is that it is basically green, just like we set it over here. Now obviously in Xamarin.Forms you don't need to create a custom renderer just to set the color of a button that's already created for you, but this was used just as a simple example. For some more complex stuff you will have to have a custom renderer, even in some external libraries. And that's basically it. I'll see you next time.